Breaking tonight, new headaches for the Clinton campaign as a stunning report from the Associated Press raises questions about her time at the State Department, about her family's foundation, and about whether special access to Secretary Clinton was being sold to the highest bidders. Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Just hours ago, the AP released an investigative report saying the majority of people who met with then Secretary Clinton outside of government officials were folks who had given money to the Clinton Foundation, and it was not chump change. Combined, they or their businesses contributed as much as $156 million. The Clinton campaign is slamming the AP's report as, quote, utterly flawed. But this comes on the heels of another report showing Mrs. Clinton's top aide, Huma Abedin, giving preferential treatment to donors at the specific request of the Clinton Foundation. And just one day after her rival, Donald Trump, demanded a full-fledged investigation into this.
The amounts involved, the favors done, and the significant number of times it was done require an expedited investigation by a special prosecutor immediately.
In moments, we'll be joined by Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus to hear what he's calling for. Plus, we'll speak with nationally recognized law professor Jonathan Turley about whether this meets the standard for a special prosecutor. But we begin with Trace Gallagher, who's at our breaking news desk, to walk us through these new details. Trace?
Megyn, the Associated Press tried to get these documents 3 years ago, but ran into a series of delays and eventually had to sue the State Department in federal court. After finally receiving calendars and schedules during Hillary Clinton's time as Secretary of State, the AP focused only on meetings she had with people not associated with the U.S. or foreign governments. And here's what they found. Of the 154 people from private interests who met or had phone conversations with then Secretary Clinton, 85 of them gave to the Clinton Foundation for a combined total of $156 million. At least 40 of those people donated more than $100,000 each. 20 of them gave more than $1 million. There doesn't appear to be anything illegal about the donations, but as many point out, it certainly propagates the idea that getting a one-on-one with the Secretary of State was going to cost you. The Clinton campaign calls the AP numbers outrageous, saying, quote, "This story relies on utterly flawed data. It cherry-picked a limited subset of Secretary Clinton's schedule to give a distorted portrayal of how often she crossed paths with individuals connected to charitable donations to the Clinton Foundation. Bill Clinton says if his wife wins, he would step down from the foundation and that it would no longer accept money from foreign groups or U.S. companies. But the Trump campaign says the pledge is simply exploiting a corporate loophole and would not affect donations to smaller charities tied to the Clintons." Here's VP nominee Mike Pence.
They're essentially saying to their foreign donors that they can make a down payment on Clinton access in the next administration between now and Election Day. And the American people aren't having any of it.
Experts point out that 6,000 donors have already given the Clinton Foundation some $2 billion, which, if she's elected, could lead to future potential conflicts. Megyn.
Trace, thank you. Joining us now with more, Reince Priebus, chairman of the Republican National Committee. Mr. Chairman, good of you to be here tonight. Your thoughts on whether indeed it is time for a special prosecutor in this case and your proposal for getting around a clearly reluctant Justice Department, which would be needed to have one.
Well, clearly, the DOJ can't investigate itself. The FBI already recommended an investigation of corruption in the Clinton Foundation. They declined to do it. Look, she's selling her time. She was selling her time as Secretary of State. So the question for the court is,
our time.
Is it legal?
It's our time. She was on the clock for us.
That's right. I mean, and so the question for the court is, and you're a lawyer, is it legal to sell time of a Secretary of State based on the size of a donation to a private foundation controlled by that Secretary of State? That's what she was doing, and it's very clear that she was selling her time. The part that's even
you say
more
it's very clear, but you correct me. There's an inference of it. There isn't the smoking gun. There's the Huma Abedin email to the Crown Prince of Bahrain, about him saying, "All right." She accepts an invitation from the Clinton Foundation head to get that guy a meeting. She's like, "All right, I'll take care. I got it." Right? Like I got it. But there's no.
Right.
Their point is, look, she met with a lot of people. Some happen to have had dealings with the Clinton Foundation, and to suggest that that's untoward or pay for play is unsupported.
Well, I mean, you have to put the pieces together. Look, it took them 3 years to get these emails out there in the public, and everything points to the fact that she had people like Brand and Huma Abedin that were working as go-betweens. Huma was employed by both the Clinton Foundation and the State Department. Mm-hmm. They took anywhere from $21 to $65 million from countries in the Middle East that have horrible records against women and gays and everyone else in between. She set up they helped an owner of a soccer team to help on a visa, so he gave money to the Clinton Foundation to take care of the visa problem. I'd say you'd have a pretty good advocate for a visa problem if you could get the ear of the Secretary of State to take care of your problem.
So your point is this was an abuse of power. It was corrupt, and it was an abuse of the power with which she was imbued, that she used it not to help the United States or the American people, but she used it to help herself, to help her foundation.
She used it to help herself.
And the donors
she lined her own. And they were lining their own pockets the whole way through, then following up and giving speeches for hundreds of thousands of dollars. What's also interesting is, look, now Bill Clinton is saying, well, if Hillary Clinton becomes president, we're going to step down from the Clinton Foundation. Well, how is that much different than being Secretary of State? I mean, not to mention the fact that they were using a private secret server to conduct the business that she tried to hide from us in regard to all of this information, let alone giving away state secrets.
Of course, but the question is whether any of this is going to matter to the voters, because, look, Hillary Clinton's problems with the emails and even with the Clinton Foundation have, to some extent, been outed already in the public. And yet still we've seen a race, Mr. Chairman, in which Donald Trump is not succeeding right now. That, the Real Clear Politics average of all polls has him down 5.5 points to her. Missouri poll came out today that shows them neck and neck. Mitt Romney won that state by almost 10 points. Donald Trump's down there in Texas today. What's he doing in Texas? States like Texas and Georgia, those are red states. His critics say he's playing defense in all of these states where he needs to be playing offense, and she's got the better ground game. To all of that, you say what?
So let me try to unwrap all of that real quick. Number one, he's in Texas because he's raising money, just like Hillary Clinton's in California raising money. She was in Cape Cod raising money. She was, obviously you have to go at times to fundraise in places like Dallas and Houston and Southern California, and that's what they're doing. As far as the polling is concerned, there was also polls that showed that Donald Trump was ahead in Iowa. He's ahead in Nevada. Yeah, he's got to be consistent, and I think they know that. I think that if he continues to be measured, continues to be prepared, consistent, like he has been, he's had a great week, I think those polls are going to narrow. And I do think that Donald Trump can do that, and I do think that the polls are going to narrow. Now, back to the original part of this interview. If you had a special prosecutor and someone that was actually going to do their job and investigate whether or not there's corruption and do what you'd expect our government to do in a situation like this, she's going to sink. And with Donald Trump being more consistent and doing what he's been doing, I think you're going to see by Labor Day the polls tight and even potentially him getting back ahead like he was after the convention.
By Labor Day. Okay, so Steve Bannon has taken over as the CEO of Trump's campaign. This is a guy who doesn't think much of your party and has come out and suggested he'd like to destroy the whole thing, according to a report that just hit yesterday in the Daily Beast, suggesting he's a Leninist, that he'd like to take down the Republican Party. He just doesn't like parties in general. You're the head of the Republican Party. What do you think of that?
Well, I never like unearned attacks, and we've been both on the good side and the bad side of that particular website. But look, there's so much media out there, Megan. I mean, there's so many websites. There's so many.
Well, you've seen Steve Bannon's website, Breitbart, which thinks absolutely nothing of your party and the so-called party elite. You know that.
Listen, I'm not a fan of some of the things that have happened, but I don't think it's been totally one-sided either. I mean, we've been on the receiving end of some good things from that particular particular website too. But I think you got to judge people moving forward, and I think so far, if you look at the way things have been going for the last several days, I think it's a continuation of Donald Trump staying on message, being disciplined. He's doing it again today. I think that's where he needs to be.
Reince Priebus, great to see you, sir. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Megan.
So do these new revelations about the Clinton Foundation meet the standard for the appointment of a special prosecutor? Jonathan Turley is a constitutional law attorney and George Washington University Law School professor. Professor, great to see you. So let me start with this. Do you see this as a problem? Because, again, the Clinton campaign is saying, once again, conspiracy theories, there's no there.
No, I don't think anyone can objectively look at the Associated Press report and not believe that there's a serious problem here. I mean, you have a great number of people that have business with the State Department giving money to the foundation, some pretty disreputable people doing so, and gaining what appears to be special access. And then you have this revolving door or dual role in one case of someone who might have been employed by the foundation and State Department at the same time, which, by the way, is colossally stupid to have anyone in that role. But all of that creates a foundation for these allegations whether you have a pay-to-play scenario. And I think that it deserves an investigation. I think the Associated Press investigated as much as they could. They had to go to court to get the information. Right. But I don't see how anyone could deny that these are troubling disclosures.
So could the DOJ, they're not going to appoint a special prosecutor. I mean, you tell me, are they going to appoint a special prosecutor? And could the DOJ do it itself? The investigation?
Well, the Department of Justice has a rather dismal record, and I'm not just speaking about the Obama administration, during the Bush administration. In the last few decades, they have had a terrible record in terms of applying laws evenly to high-ranking people as they do to ordinary people. Mm-hmm. And I really don't think it's much of a record to brag about. And so they have little credibility with some people when it comes to very powerful individuals. But more importantly, this investigation, we only have roughly a little over 70 days of the election. This investigation will extend beyond Election Day.
So it can't get done before November 8th?
It very likely would not be, but then you would have some serious conflicts there. If, in fact, the next president is Hillary Clinton, that would tend to favor a special counsel. But more importantly, any investigation into the foundation, and people at the FBI clearly indicated that they wanted to investigate aspects of the foundation, but any investigation is going to involve high-ranking officials and also foreign interests that are very important to the United States. I think the appearance alone says that the public interest would be served with the appointment of a special counsel.
And the odds of that happening are
probably
not high, to be charitable. Professor Turley, great to see you.
Thank you, Megan.
Also tonight, Mrs. Clinton's medical history was back in the news today, and Dr. Mark Siegel is next on the health questions. Good thing he takes insurance. Before Karl Rove and Mo Alithi join us on how this plays with voters. Wait until you hear their take on Hillary Clinton's health issue. That is a campaign issue. Plus, Donald Trump making news tonight with new remarks about softening his hardline position on immigration. The fallout from that just ahead.
Is there any part of the law that you might be able to change that would accommodate those people that contribute to society, have been law-abiding, have kids here,